To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejados de las
This here's the wildest ride in the
So today on Miles from Main Street, we were able to go to Marceline, Missouri, and we are going to tell you guys all about it.
Oh, it was such a great weekend. We had a great time, and we did a lot, and we built so many different pieces of content. I hope you guys are able to join us on Facebook on Saturday a little bit. If not, go check out the videos there. It was great. We had a great time.
Yeah, we definitely turned into YouTubers. We were trying to capture pretty much everything. We did a little bit of a room review. That was pretty cool. We stayed at the Marceline Hotel. Is that what it's called?
Flip it. Hotel Marceline.
Hotel Marceline, yeah. We were able to look at a couple rooms there, which was pretty cool. Give you a little room review. And we did a bunch of other things. But starting there. So this Marceline Hotel Marceline, we didn't call it the incorrect name this entire time, but Hotel Marceline is kind of your basic kind of like motel style hotel.
I like to call it like a roadside motel.
Yeah. It's like a, what do we call it? We called it the Rosebud Hotel because it really gave us vibes of the Rosebud Motel. But the cool thing that they did was they went out and they bought stuff from the All-Stars and Pop Century. And when I say stuff, I mean like furniture and like bed frames and stuff like that. And art.
Decorations. Yeah, the art. Yeah.
And they just decked out these rooms with that. They also had...
They had an Animal Kingdom Lodge room, which we really thought was one of the best rooms. It had a king bed in it, and everything in there was, the TV stand and the bed frame and the nightstand, everything. It was from the Animal Kingdom Lodge. It was really nice in there.
Yeah, I think that was the room that if I were to go back, and you're going to find out what I think about that pretty soon. If I was to go back, that's the room I would stay in. However, they did tell us that they had kind of like a giant suite that was Wilderness Lodge themed. At least I heard somebody mention that. We didn't get to go in there because there was a whole party in there. They actually asked us if we were hunting or fishing when we got in because apparently people use the Hotel Marceline as a stop for when they're fishing or they're hunting. So... but nope, we were there to do Disney stuff.
Yeah, apparently it was turkey season, so they were wondering if that's what we were doing as we walked in with all of our Disney garb on.
Yeah.
But we stayed in the All-Star rooms. We had a queen bed in our room, and if you guys remember those awesome tables that they had in the All-Star rooms, they had those tables in there. And I was so tempted. I really wanted to throw one in the back of the truck and take it home.
Yeah, we were really close to just burgling them. Like we almost just took them. I don't think you understand. We had a legitimate conversation about stealing these tables.
But don't worry. We knew what was right, and we left the table there. We did not take it with us.
We really wanted to, though.
And, a couple of years ago, my family was down in Disney World, and they happened to know a cast member. So they were able to get into Cast Connection, and they were selling these tables for $20. And I said to my mom, I said, you need to bring that home to me. And she said, but I'm flying. I said, I don't care. And she said, but what do I do with it? Stick it under the seat. I don't care. It's coming home with you. Unfortunately, I did not get it. So as I had this in my hand... Because we picked it up and moved it. Like, it's kind of in the entryway, and you'll see in the video when we put out the room reviews that as you walk in, it's kind of like in the entryway. And so we moved it to the other side of the room so that we could all kind of watch TV together as we were just chilling out at the end of the day. So, like, I had it in my hand. Like, I wanted to just take it with me.
Yeah, I was definitely feeling that same way. But let's kind of talk about. So we talked about this hotel, motel, whatever it is, having all-star stuff. And I definitely got all-star vibes, Pop Century vibes. I got Animal Kingdom Lodge vibes. Definitely, I really enjoyed that room. But when we talk about the motel itself, it was like a typical motel. Nothing was too terribly bad. Like I've stayed at some pretty bad motels. Nothing was too bad, but it's just kind of like your expectations. Like you got to know that like this is a motel in Marceline. Like you're not getting All Star. You're not getting Animal Kingdom Lodge. But yeah, that was one thing that it was kind of weird. It was jarring seeing that stuff, and then kind of like walking in. I think one of the most interesting things was I had like a handle in my shower pop off or something like that. So that was just kind of sitting there. So it's like it's a motel. Like it's out there. It is what it is. But I really enjoyed the touch that they gave it. Like them plussing it in that way and giving us all-star vibes. And it's funny. That only really works for like certain people. Other people, I'm sure, walk in there who haven't been to the All-Stars, who Disney doesn't mean that much to them. They just kind of walk in, they're like, oh, cool, Disney, yeah. But like we were wigging out on a lot of this stuff. We were like, oh, I think that's definitely from All-Star Music, and I think that's from sports, that's from movies, and so we had a good time there. But you do kind of have to understand that it is a motel, and it's not a Disney hotel. By any means, but I feel like what they did to it and what they are doing to it is very cool. So,
yeah, I mean, you guys gotta understand, like the end table was from All Star. The lamp was a treble clef from All Star Music. It was like every single detail from All Star Resorts was in that room. So
it was literally everything that you get in those rooms. It was like the giant organizer. That's from All Star. They still have those at sports.
Yeah, it was great. It was great seeing all that stuff and being able to stay in a room like that. And so you need to understand though that like Marceline is in northern Missouri, and it's kind of on its own. I mean, the closest town, and it was a small town, was about 15 minutes up the highway. And I don't even know that there was a motel there. I think the closest hotel that had a name brand on it was probably a half an hour from here. So to come into this town, you're taking what you can get. And there are some Airbnbs. You'll see in our recap video that we're putting out on YouTube that there is an Airbnb above the Uptown Theater. I know that there's another one. They suggested, I think it's the Marceline Mural Hotel or something, and I believe that one is also on Airbnb or else on Vrbo, one of the two. But those are that's what you get in this town, which I'm kind of surprised by, because this is a busy town. It's getting busier as it goes. And really the only motel was this Hotel Marceline, which I thought was charming. I enjoyed it. It did have a couple of its own little issues, but I'm not holding it against them. I had a great time staying there. The bed was hard for what I like, but I got a good night's sleep anyway. I know you said that yours had a ridge down the middle.
Yeah, you could definitely tell that two people usually sleep on it. Yeah, there was definitely sides to my bed that I was in.
So, I mean, it has its issues, but $80 a night, I was happy.
Yeah, as most small town motels do. So it's just, I think that's what you got to understand is if you end up going, it's a small town motel with all-star stuff in it. And that's basically what it was. It wasn't any worse. It wasn't any better. But that's what you're getting. And we enjoyed it because we're big Disney nerds like that. Anyways, we were able to hang out in Marceline. I believe the pretty much the first thing we did was go to Walt's barn. We actually went there twice. We went there almost like the first thing that we did, and then we went there again the last thing that we did. So, but I feel like that area was very cool. You've got all of this signage that kind of tells you all of these different stories about the Dreaming Tree and Walt growing up in Marceline and his time that was spent here, and how much he loved it and cherished his time here and felt like he grew a lot and got a lot of the inspiration that kind of drove him to do what he was going to do. But we were able to go into the barn, and on the inside of the barn, if you've ever watched any video of Marceline, Missouri, they show that barn, and there are signatures all over the barn. And so that was something that we needed to do, but we decided we were going to do that as the last thing that we did.
Yeah, and you're allowed to leave signatures anywhere inside the barn. Anything on the outside will be removed. To take a step back to the Dreaming Tree, in case you guys aren't familiar with that story, Walt did a lot of what he called belly botany underneath this tree, and he also came up with all of his wild ideas, dreaming of different things that he was going to create. And that tree has since fallen, and before that happened, they harvested some seeds, and they started growing those trees. They were able to get 3 saplings from that, and there is one right in the walkway as you're walking up towards the barn, prior to getting to the site of the original Dreaming Tree, and they called it Son of Dreaming Tree. And I pointed it out in the live video, and I think it's really cool what they've done is they brought water from the rivers of America and some soil from Disneyland and mixed it all into the ground right there and grew that tree right there. Ambassadors from Disneyland came and did that along with one of the sons, right? I can't remember. Grandson, I believe, helped in that process of Walt Disney. And so then they also had 2 more saplings. One is on Tom Sawyer's Island at Disneyland, and the other one they secretly planted on the farm in Marceline somewhere. So the Dreaming Tree has its branches, and it's still growing and living well, and I think that's great. Great that they're able to do that. So the barn, I think, is really cool. He had this barn. He built it on his Holmby Hills estate, and he wanted something that reminded him of the barn that he used at in Marceline that he was able to go in. So he created this barn, put the plans together, rebuilt it on his estate there in California, and Marceline was able to get those plans, and they did a 3-day old-fashioned barn raising, where normally you have, you heard this last week from Kay, but normally you would have people from the neighborhood helping out. Well, their neighbors came from all over the world to help them rebuild this barn. So very, very cool how they were able to do that. I think, Mikhailo, you were pretty moved as well as I was, seeing that barn and being there.
Yeah, it was a great thing to see, and I think that's kind of what I was looking for when I was in Marceline, was things of Walt, being in the same area as Walt, being able to see something that Walt had constructed. Just thinking of like him being in a barn like that, just spending his time. That's what I was looking for in Marceline. Things to kind of connect me to Walt. And I think that's why people go to Marceline, is to feel connected with Walt and with this person who made all of these amazing things in our lives. So,
yeah, I remember Friday night walking away we were kind of walking up towards the Dreaming Tree site, and I said, "Can we just stop for a minute and recognize the fact that Walt Disney stood here?" And we all kind of just stopped and looked at the site and realized it. And I think more so the next day is when we were really, I don't want to say spiritual, but, really getting some vibes about Walt and what had happened there. So moving into Saturday, what did we get to do?
So Saturday, we started bright and early. We wanted to get ourselves onto Main Street and kind of take a tour of Main Street. Brian has been there before, so Brian was actually a very good tour guide for everything, and I kind of just went along. But Brian kind of took us to a couple of stops. There's the Zerker building, which is, I think is that like the Coke corner in Disneyland?
Right, yeah, it's called Refreshment Corner now.
Okay. But yeah, if you look at it, like that type of architecture, that's what you see everywhere, with pretty much all of the Main Street USAs. So it was very cool to see something like that. And that, like, really, when I saw that, I was like, okay, yeah, this is it. But one of the things that I did mention was, walking through, because it is a main street. Like, they didn't just stop and preserve it exactly how Walt wanted it, and I would think that a couple of times. I was like, oh, is this what it looked like when Walt was here? It's most likely not, and that is something I wish I would be able to see. But it is like your typical main street that you'd see in like rural America, and that's what they wanted. Like, they hit the nail on the head. Like, I feel like that type of main street I see everywhere in Wisconsin. And so it really is Main Street USA. Like, that's like your typical main street. And I thought that was very cool. And it made a lot of sense when you think about it, why they decided to use a place like that, and a place that Walt grew up in.
Yeah, and so we did some filming on Main Street. We recorded some videos, and you guys may have seen that on YouTube already. Go check it out if you haven't. It was a lot of fun putting it together. I did point out to the guys, my son was along, so I might refer to the guys a couple times, but I did point out at one point we were filming by the Zerker building and a family walked past, and at this point we weren't quite sure how the city felt about this Disney stuff and people coming into the city and filming their city and all this, but I did see a family walk by as we were doing this and saw the parents kind of shaking their heads like, oh, another Disney group doing Disney stuff. So it was a little interesting seeing that, but after getting into the museum or even lunch, so we did the filming on Main Street USA, and we went into Mavik's Corner Cafe, which is right there across the street from Zerker, and everybody was, everyone there seemed to be all about Disney. They had all kinds of Disney stuff up on their walls, and you've kind of felt a little more comfortable at that point.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit while we were there, where it was what exactly is the vibe? Because I could see people just kind of being. I mean, I know you have like hometown pride, and if Walt Disney grew up in your hometown, I'd be pretty proud about that. But you just kind of never know if people kind of scoff at it or like how people feel about it. But I felt like, to the right people, like when you found the right Disney people, they were really into it, which I really enjoyed. Nobody ever said anything. We did get a couple weird looks, because I'm sure, if anybody was in your hometown with like a selfie stick walking around Main Street, I'm sure you'd think it was kind of weird. But there were definitely those people who were very welcoming. When we got our stamps stamped on our cards, our
On our
What are those
postcards, yeah, we got some postcards from the museum and went over to the post office, which is the only federal building named after Walt Disney.
Yeah, and the people in there were great. They just showed us the stamp and everything, and they stamped our cards, and they were very nice. And so there were nice people everywhere. But I'm sure, I mean, yeah, it's people coming in and recording your hometown might be kind of weird. But yeah, so we were able to hang out on Main Street. We went and saw the theater that had a couple premieres held at it. I believe it was The Spirit of Mickey and The Great Locomotive Chase. Is that right?
Yeah, at the Uptown Theater they did that. Yeah.
I'm learning. I have all the facts for you guys. But yeah, and the Great Locomotive Chase, I believe that was the one that was the actual premiere, and then The Spirit of Mickey premiered in California alongside of Marceline. But it was cool. We were able to see some signs that they had, some original signs. The whole thing was done up with Disney. I believe there's an Airbnb on top of it too, which I thought was very cool. But yeah, it was cool to see that, and cool to see that history there.
Yeah, it was really cool. Looking at the theater, looking into the theater, and seeing some items there. And you had mentioned that I had been there before, and the first time I had gone, the Spirit of Mickey sign was in the back. Like, you had to look in these windows and look back, and you could see it way back in there. And they put it up in the window now, which is great that you're able to see it. And they, just being able to see back and see a few other Disney items in the back, instead of focusing on that Spirit of Mickey sign, I guess. But yeah, so after we finished, walking around on Main Street, we went over to E.P. Ripley Park. And this park has been there for a long time. And you might recognize the name E.P. Ripley. This is the steam train engine that Walt would ride in on at Disneyland. He named the train after this park as well. It has 2 or 3 train cars in it. One is a Santa Fe Railroad and Disneyland Railroad. It says on the engine. That was really cool to see. It was dedicated to people that worked on the railroad and lost their lives. They also had a couple of other ones there that you could go take a look at. Very cool looking. Near the back of this park, and this is one of those parks that's very much the same type of, cliche type of park that you might see in any movie, where they've got the bandstand in the middle of the park, or a gazebo type of thing, and maybe like a little shelter there. No playground type stuff, not that kind of a park. Just open green space that the community can gather in. And so we walked through there, and at the back of the park, closer to the railroad tracks, because now we're getting close to the museum, which is in an old railroad building. Back there is where they had set up the track of the Midget Utopia ride. And this ride was given to Marceline from Disneyland when they decided to take it down. So they donated. It's the only ride that's ever been given to be used outside of a Disney park. And so they have that, and they ran it for a long time because it was given to them in the 60s. But after a while, it just became too expensive to keep up. So now they have recreated the track with a walking track. And what was one of the neat little tidbits that you figured out, or we figured out while we were walking around the track?
Yeah, Brian set me up really well for this one, because I definitely had this ready to go as soon as he started talking about this. So I'll just paint the picture. Bunch of Disney guys from Wisconsin walking around Marceline, Missouri. We get to the Midgetopia. We're walking around. Basically they're it's just like paths that you can walk the track on. And they're zigging and zagging. They're going around. And as we're going around, there's this plaque on the ground. And we're sitting here reading this plaque because throughout the entire trip, if there was a plaque somewhere, it was talking about something Disney. And so we wanted to read it. So we're reading this plaque and we're just like, Brooke and Robin Lopez, blah, 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 blah. Wait a minute. and that's when it hit us. These are the two guys that played on the Bucks that liked Disney so much. And so we read the plaque, and basically Brooke and Robin Lopez were donors for, I'm pretty sure it's the Midgetopia and a little bit of like the park, but it's donors because they're building that whole area up and making it nicer. So that kind of blew our minds. That was a little bit of Wisconsin, right there in Marceline, Missouri. But that was very, very cool. Brooke and Robin Lopez. I know that they're both big Disney fans. I know that Brooke Lopez, his nickname is Splash Mountain. So I always liked that. And I'm a big Bucks fan. I used to work for the Bucks, so go Bucks. But yeah, that was very cool to be able to see that and kind of have that connection to what was going on.
Yeah, it was really cool, and they were one of the more major donors for the track, so that was really neat to see. Knowing that their fandom of Disney does go beyond the parks, so that was really cool. Yeah, the path that they have set up, it's the original layout of the original track that they had in Disneyland. So you can go and you can walk that track, and there's a little building that they're working on right now, and that will house a car or two, because they do have a couple of original cars yet. So they will be able to put them on display for people to see them out there. She is hoping, she told us later this summer, to officially open it. It's not quite ready yet, but it looks so cool. It was so much fun to walk around it. I hope you guys get to see it in the video and enjoy watching that part of the video. It was fun. It was fun doing that. And I'll just, Kay also, we talked to Kay for quite a bit before and after the interview as well. She pointed out that, so there's this pond in the park right next to the Midgetopia track, and it's a beautiful pond. Mikhailo has a great shot of it in the video, and they have this bridge over the top of it, and Kay pointed out it's the same railing on that bridge that they have on the train station at Disneyland. I thought that was such a cool detail. So if you ever get to Marceline, you can recognize that and know that it's giving us a nod to Disneyland, which they're all Disneyland people there. So, and there's Disney everywhere, but it's awesome.
Yeah. So getting to the museum, I had never been there before, so I was having a grand old time running through this museum and seeing all of these Disney things. I very much enjoyed up top. They had a bunch of, so there were like little models of all of these things in the park, like Main Street. They had a Haunted Mansion, which I definitely, that hit me in the feels. But that was cool, because that's usually how Disney parks will try to visualize something, is they'll make a model of it. I found out that it was made by just like a Disney fan, like somebody who really enjoyed making models. And turns out that guy ended up sending Walt Disney, when he was a kid, a letter saying, "Hey, I would like to make more of these models. Would you be able to send me blueprints?" And then Walt got him in touch with people at the parks, and they were able to send him more detailed pictures and stuff so that he could keep making this stuff. And so Kay ended up, like, somebody just came to Kay and said, "Hey, we've got these models of Main Street USA and all this stuff. Do you guys want them?" So they put him in the museum. But that's a lot of what that museum is. It tells a lot of the stories of Walt. It tells a lot of what Walt wanted to get done, and a lot of like the Disney history of how they went about doing things, and just kind of his time spent in Marceline. So it was very cool. It was very fun to go through that and spend a lot of time digging deep into what they had there.
Yeah, and being my second time there, I was trying to take a little bit more time to read some of the signs, read some of the letters. As you heard from Kay last week, the collection is built off of stuff that Ruth Disney, the little sister, had. And so a lot of what that was numerous letters between her and Walt and her and Roy. And so we spent a lot of time trying to read some of the stuff. I couldn't read every letter. That it's hard to do something like that. But, you did get a lot of great information walking through there about the family, about the relationship that they had with each other. It was a lot of historical information, a lot of great stuff that I could have spent another 3 days looking at if I wanted to. We did spend about 2 to 3 hours there, I believe, and I know my son loves to take the time to go through a museum like I do. And I probably was the one that took the longest, though. Usually I'm waiting on Jacob, and Jacob was waiting on me this time, which I thought was kind of interesting. But a lot of great stuff there. A lot of great stuff. What was something that you can remember right now that you really enjoyed from the museum?
So I kind of mentioned it already. And this was, so walking around there, maybe this was just kind of the culmination of, because it was kind of the last thing I saw before I started to go back and reinvestigate things. But it was just like everything leading up to it, just like reading all about this Disney stuff, going room to room. And then when I got to all those models, I was walking around, just kind of looking around and looking, because they had models everywhere. Like the whole like right side of the room was just all models. But I was kind of looking around, and then just tucked in a corner was the Disneyland version of Haunted Mansion. And I audibly gasped when I saw it. Like I had that kind of, and I wasn't even like being funny. Brian wasn't, there was nobody around. I was by myself, saw the model for the Haunted Mansion, and just went, oh, and like that's just what that meant to me. And just kind of like my fandom. And I mean, I had to like touch it. I had to like sit and inspect it. They tell you not to touch it. Kids don't touch it. I had to. But yeah, just like being able to see something like that and just have it mean so much to me and kind of hit me in that way was very cool. I also enjoyed kind of learning about Walt's parents, kind of going through the room that they had with Walt's parents and learning about their histories as well. The very first room we went in had a lot of very early history of Walt, which I enjoyed as well. But yeah, just kind of like going from thing to thing and just kind of like running that timeline of Walt Disney was very cool.
Yeah, they had a lot of really great items in that first room too, where, you know, they had a lot of information about his days in school, including his original desk that he sat in. And then, you know, for me, there's a big collection of fan collected items, you know, toys, comics. There was a great big Mickey Mouse statue, and, you know, other items that even came from Disney World or Disneyland that people had collected and then gave to the museum to display. I thought that was all really neat stuff. I liked looking at that. And just something beyond the history piece of it. I thought it was nice that there was a change of pace as you're looking to kind of break things up. But yeah, there's so much that they had. I think the one thing this time that really stuck out to me, though, was the TV. And Mikhailo, you and I kind of met up at some point and sat down. They have this nice couch, and we sat down on the couch, and here's this TV, and Kay is in a video on the TV at the beginning of the video and says a story about getting this TV, and basically Walt bought this TV for Kay's family, and it's the original TV, and they were playing the opening video from Disneyland on that TV, and I just thought that was really cool that they still had this TV that Walt bought them, and it's on display all in glass, and it was really cool to watch it.
Yeah, and it was really cool kind of finding out that relationship between Kay and the Disneys that I never even knew. And that kind of brings us into the interview that we had with her. And you're going to be able to hear the interview. I think is that going out before or after this episode? I think it's going out before. So you probably have already listened. But yeah, just being able to sit and talk to Kay and the things that she was able to tell us about the Disneys and about her history with the Disneys was just amazing.
So we finished up at the museum, and we needed to get some dinner, and there's some great restaurants in Marceline, but I had a hankering for barbecue, so I had done a little research and went looking for barbecue, and Mikhailo, you're already shaking your head. It was... So I said, there's a town 15 minutes away. So what did we do? We went down to this town, and they had a place. It was a barbecue restaurant. It was called True Blue Barbecue.
True Blue Barbecue.
They even had shirts and hats. Yes, shirts and hats.
Shirts and
True
hats
Blue Barbecue
with barbecue on them.
Yes. How many items on the menu was all barbecue?
3.
How many items of those 3 did we eat?
0.
How do you have a barbecue restaurant and not have barbecue?
So this is what Brian's been waiting for this entire podcast. We made the podcast so that Brian could complain about barbecue restaurants. We're gonna have a part of the podcast in each podcast now where Brian talks about barbecue.
I do have a side hobby I've got too many hobbies, but I do enjoy where I smoke meat. And so I wanted to try some Missouri barbecue.
Instead, we tried some Missouri nachos.
Pulled pork nachos, which the pulled pork wasn't smoked. I did have catfish. The catfish was good. Mm-hmm. That's not barbecue, but it was good. So anyway, I mean, we did that. Mikhailo made me do a shot of Jack Daniels.
We had to celebrate.
We had to celebrate the first Miles from Main Street trip.
But it was a fun trip. It was really great to get out and see Marceline and be in a place that Disney was. I know I get those vibes when I go to Disneyland. I've only really been there once, but you really feel the history while you're there. Like, Walt was here, Walt did this, Walt knew what was going on. Like, he has walked here. And you got those vibes when you were in Marceline, in those areas that you know that Walt was. So it was very cool. It was very cool to go out and talk to like-minded people like us, and just kind of like, I feel like it's a little bit of a rite of passage, like kind of going out and doing your Marceline trip and seeing all of these places that Walt Disney grew up.
Yeah, it was really, really nice getting there again and experiencing all of those same vibes that you're talking about. Saturday night, we talked about it briefly already, but Saturday night, the last thing we had done was we had gone to the barn, and we signed the barn. I have a picture that I'll put on Facebook. Before we walked away, Mikhailo, you looked up at the barn and just kind of it wasn't really a holler, but you just kind of like, thanks, Walt. And then, I mean, you get a lot of that. You feel a lot of that. You just want to thank him for everything he's provided to us. I wrote "thank you for the inspiration" on our signature inside, and it really is. There's so much that his dreaming and his creativity have given us. So, being able to go to Marceline really does that. Mikhailo, I think you had some thoughts on how long you would go there for.
I mean, if you're talking about whether or not I'd go back, I have a couple of thoughts on it. I feel like it's kind of a one and done unless you're going to be going for like some sort of event or something, which I definitely would. I'd love to go and be there for an event. But it does kind of feel like a once in a lifetime type thing. I don't think there's anything there just yet that is really going to be like drawing me back to Marceline. Once you kind of do all of these things, you've done them, and I feel like I wouldn't go back unless Kristen wanted to go, which actually we've talked about it, and she does kind of want to go. But yeah, it does kind of seem like a one and done, once in a lifetime type thing when you do it.
And so I've been there twice. I did enjoy the second time. There were a lot of, hey, last time it was like this, and hey, last time I did that. And, I tried to keep that to myself as much as I could. But, like you said, they do a gala every other year. I would like to do that. They also have D23 come out every other year, and I would like to do that because there's some special access that happens there. One thing we were unable to do this time was get into the school. There's an elementary school named after Walt Disney, with a lot of great art inside that he commissioned, basically.
By the way, Walt Disney Elementary School, we did find a door that was open. We could have broken in and saw all the things we wanted to see, but we didn't because we're good little boys and we're not going to break into a school. But Walt Disney Elementary School, you had some doors open. So, yeah.
Yeah. And who knows what that city's like. I mean, one day you don't really understand all of it, but maybe that's how it goes there. You can just leave the doors open. And, as nice as those people are, I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, we looked at each other. Mikhailo said, "So I found an open door." And I said, no, we can't. And even on the ride home the next day, I said, "Do you wish we would have gone in?" And he's like, "No,
Nah.
no." It was the right decision, but still.
Exactly. Like we could have stolen the table, but still.
So it was a good time. This is the first time I've traveled with Mikhailo. This is the first time that the podcast went on a trip.
Mm-hmm.
It was great that Miles from Main Street could get closer to Main Street. Being far from Disney, we only had to drive 8 hours.
Yeah.
Instead of 24. To get there. So it was nice to be able to get away and do something Disney for a weekend and enjoy each other's company a little bit. And so thanks for going with me, Mikhailo. It was a lot of fun.
You are very welcome. Yes, I think it was a very fun trip, and I had a very good time doing Disney stuff with my Disney companion. But that's all we got for you guys tonight. But remember, some live close,
but others don't.
So let's talk about it. We'll see you next time on Miles from Main Street.